Today we're going to be rebuilding the universal joint on my Mistral Take-Off. The parts that you're going to need for this are universal joint. I've got a couple of these, and you can buy these at any sailboarding store. They're typically between, at least here in Australia, $30 to $40 for these guys. And I'm using the traditional joint rather than the tendon joint. They're a little bit softer, and the older mast bases on these old Mistral boards, they're going to appreciate a little less pressure on them. So I've got a couple of those. I've got the top piece. This is what connects into the mast. This is called a Europin. And I like these because it means I can use both my old masts, my new masts, anything that has a Europin style mast extension, which is what I use for pretty much everything these days. It also means I can use both an SDM and an RDM mast. I've got these safety leashes from Chinook. These are great, just in case the joint breaks. And then I've got this little plastic washer, which is a Chinook washer as well. These are for the safety leashes. I've got some Loctite. I'm using the blue one in case I ever actually want to get it undone again. And then most importantly, I've got the insert that goes into the board. This is the original one. That's what it looks like. And then I had this one, I bought this one from Amped 3D. You can find them on Facebook. A guy in France actually makes these 3D prints them, so we've got this as well. So let's get this all together. First off, if you watch at the end of this video, you'll see how I actually separated the original mast base insert from the universal joint. It's quite a challenge, and I've read about different people doing different things, but have a look at the video at the end and you'll see it took me about half an hour. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to keep this little bolt, which is what actually goes through here. Jiggle it around, there we go. Coming out the end. It's got a Allen key style hex head on it there. For what it's worth, the actual hex head itself is about 8mm, and it's an 8mm thread, of course. I've just lost my little piece here. Where did it go? There it is. My little washer. All right, so step one, I'm going to rebuild the original one, is to get my safety strap organized. Now, as I said, I use these Chinook ones. You could use just any old piece of webbing. This is what they look like. I found they're a little bit too big. So what I've done is I've cut this one in half, and I'm going to put a sort of cut, I don't know, about almost an inch out of it, and I'm going to put a couple of new holes in it just to make the whole thing a little bit shorter. So I've cut it in half already. I've removed the original sort of hole that was in it, sort of about that much. Now I'm going to put a brand new hole in. I'm using a soldering iron. I'm just going to melt through this. I'll just get a bit of a hole going there. Kind of layer it over where I want it to be. Put a hole in the other part, maybe about there. Probably measure it. I'll just overlap them now. Make sure I've got them lined up. And we'll just keep working this a little bit more. And a little bit on this one. Now, with a bit of luck, I'll make a little bit bigger so this fits through. I guess it's got to be an 8mm hole. Things aren't quite as precise when you're doing it this way. Let's see how we're looking now. It's getting pretty close. Yeah, I think I can make that one work. That one I'll make a bit bigger yet. And the original hole that's still there, I'm going to use this on the bottom. I'll make that a little bit bigger too. Okay. It's a bit of a test fit with the 8mm threaded top. This is the same as the bolt that is in the bottom. Everything's 8mm. Okay. Tight, but doable. So we've got our mast base insert. See if we can put out the fire here. Mast base insert, and I've got the actual bolt that goes through there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a little bit of this Loctite on it. Then I'm going to, in fact, what I'll do is I'll thread this on first. Put the washer on. And what I've done, this plastic washer has got sort of a cutout. I'm going to put the cutout this way. So the cutout is on the top, and this piece of webbing is going over the bolt and the cutout. It probably doesn't make much difference, but the reason I'm doing it this way, why I'm actually putting the cutout at the top, so that it's actually going to be the webbing that is rubbing against the bottom of this universal joint, as opposed to the webbing, if it rubs at all, against this base piece, because this is the piece that's going to move, the base piece. As I say, it probably doesn't make any difference whatsoever. All right, so sitting like that now, Loctite. I put a little bit of that inside the joint, and I'll put some of it on the thread here. Now, I'm just going to put the two pieces together. Okay. Doing this up as tight as I can. All right. So we've still got some movement this way. The base can still move from the, you know, I might even loosen it a fraction. Give it a touch more freedom. There we go. It's looking pretty good. So we've got the insert, the washer, the webbing, and then the joint, the universal joint. Sometimes called a boge or a boge. I'm not sure how to say it. Now I'm going to put the top piece on. So all we've got is one of these pre-made Europins. I think this is about $20 US. I bought this one on eBay. Stainless steel, fits any standard Europin mast base. So I'm just going to do the same thing, except I'm not actually going to use a washer this time. I'm just going to put a little bit of this Loctite into the thread of the joint. And then onto the thread here of the Europin. And then the messy piece, I'm going to get it through my piece of webbing here. This is where we find out if I actually got the hole the right size, if I got it even close. Pretty tight. I probably could have afforded to have made the holes a little bit bigger in my webbing. Nonetheless, I think I've got it through. And now I'm just going to crank this down. So I'm just showing you what I'm doing in here. Yeah, a little bit more thread exposed, I think. So what would have made a bit more sense is if I'd actually put the Loctite material on like about now, after I've actually got this webbing through. Okay, so that's started to connect. Straighten these pieces out like that. And now I'm just going to tighten this up. This particular Europin insert has a little spot here. You can put a wrench or a spanner, so you can actually tighten it up. I'm going to go a little bit tighter again. Get that as pretty much as tight as I can get it. And there we go. We have one universal joint. Straighten these little bits of webbing up if I can pull them around underneath. Now, one last sort of touch you can do is put a little sort of rubber O-ring just to hold this webbing against the middle piece here, just to keep it out of the way. Let me see if I can go and find one. Okay, so this is the kind of O-ring I was talking about. I got these ones from AliExpress, I think. These ones have an outside diameter of 35 millimeters, and the actual, the thickness of the rubber itself is 3 millimeters. So what it does, you can just sort of squeeze the sides in a little bit on this guy. That, and then just grab my O-ring, stretch it across the whole top, and then you just end up with something that looks like that. Very neat. Obviously, if the O-ring disintegrates over time, because it's just made of rubber, it's super easy to replace. Don't have to pull anything apart. And we're ready to go. Now, before I finish this video, I want to come back to this piece here. This is an aftermarket board insert that I purchased, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to attach it onto here, use the strap, and put a top on it. When I got this one, if I can show you, it actually has a nut, stainless steel nut, inserted into the top of it. This long rod that goes all the way through it, which is great, and a locking nut on the end. So this was all kind of screwed together, but what I wanted was for this to be able to rotate around this centerpiece, right? Whereas before, because it had this nut in the top, it was actually fixed, so it wouldn't necessarily rotate, which would mean the only point of rotation on the whole system when it was put together would be at the top here. That is the mast base where it connects. That could rotate, but the bottom part, unlike this one, wouldn't have been able. See, this one rotates. That was what I wanted to emulate with this aftermarket one. So what I did was I just simply took this centerpiece out, and I got a drill, and I just drilled the thread out of this. So now, instead of this really being a nut, it's a nut without a thread. So it's really just it's kind of like a bearing, I suppose, a stainless steel bearing. And I drilled all the way through. I think it was an 8mm drill I used. This is an 8mm bolt. So this can now, when it's all put together, this bottom piece can rotate independently of the universal joint, and it can rotate independently of the top piece. So good luck building your own or rebuilding your own universal joints. And if you want to watch the sped up video of me actually rescuing the bolt that is in the bottom of this from the original Mistral universal joint that was broken or damaged, I'll put it on after this. Happy sailing.